Imagine an old house, its walls silent witnesses of decades, perhaps centuries. Now imagine that this stillness is suddenly broken by unexplainable events, objects flying, furniture crawling alone, knocks coming from nowhere, whispering voices in the dark. We are not talking about horror films. We are diving into the most disturbing and documented cases of poltergeists, phenomena that challenge all logic and science, leaving a trail of fear and perplexity. Get ready to discover the hidden truth behind these chilling stories that have haunted families and researchers around the world. The term poltergeist, of German origin, means noisy spirit and is a frighteningly accurate description for the chaos that these phenomena can trigger. Unlike a classic haunting, which manifests itself primarily through appearances or sensations, a poltergeist is characterized by its physical and destructive nature. It directly interacts with the environment, moving objects, causing loud noises, and in some cases even assaulting people. The distinction is crucial because it takes us to a level of interaction that transcends the merely psychological, entering a territory where reality is distorted in terrifying ways. In this investigative journey, we go beyond urban legends and fairy tales to explore real cases, meticulously recorded by paranormal investigators, police officers, and, in some situations, even scientists. The promise is clear. You will see that the line between what is possible and that it is supernatural may be much more tenuous than one imagines, and that certain houses hold secrets that the human mind can barely process. But what exactly causes a poltergeist? Is it an evil entity, a manifestation of unconscious psychic energy, or something completely different beyond our current understanding? These are the questions that have plagued researchers and victims for centuries. The complexity of each incident, the way they develop, and the unpredictability of their actions force us to question everything we think we know about the world. Are we on the verge of a revelation that will forever change our perception of existence, or are we just scratching the surface of a much deeper mystery? Prepare for your worldview to be shaken. Let's explore the chilling details of homes where peace has been stolen by invisible forces, where fear has become a permanent tenant, and where the truth, as incredible as it may sound, has been documented. The value of this investigation lies in the courage to confront the inexplicable, to give voice to those who live terror, and to present you, without filters, the facts that science still struggles to decipher. The secrets of these ancient houses are about to be revealed, and the truth can be more frightening than any fiction. In the annals of poltergeist phenomena, few cases are as famous and well documented as that of Enfield, England, which occurred between 1977 and 1979. Imagine the terror of a single mother, Peggy Hodgson, and her 4 children, when objects began to move alone in their semi-detached house in North London. Initially, it was just bumps and scratches on the walls, but the intensity escalated quickly, turning family life into a constant nightmare. Daughters, Janet and Margaret, were the most affected, with 11-year-old Janet often floating in the air and being possessed by a male guttural voice that claimed to be the former resident of the house. The first incidents were so shocking that Peggy, desperate, called the police. However, officers who arrived at the site witnessed chairs moving without explanation and other bizarre events that could not be rationally explained. A police officer even reported seeing an object being thrown by an invisible force, a crucial testimony that gave initial credibility to the case, removing the idea of a mere child's play. This detail is fundamental, because it is rare that the authorities endorsed such unusual events, but the evidence was undeniable, forcing them to recognize the strangeness of the situation. The notoriety of the Enfield case grew exponentially, attracting the attention of renowned paranormal researchers such as Maurice Grosse and Guy Lyon Playfair from Society for Psychical Research. They spent months in the house, carefully documenting each incident, installing cameras and audio recorders. His recordings captured the deep male voice that seemed to come from young Janet, as well as sounds of objects being thrown and inexplicable beats. This exhaustive documentation is what makes Enfield a landmark, as the amount of evidence collected is impressive, challenging skeptics and consolidating the mystery. However, the Enfield case was not without controversy. Some skeptics claimed that the children, especially Janet, were staging events, seeking attention. There were times when Janet admitted to faking some of the occurrences to see the investigators' reaction, which cast a shadow of doubt on the entirety of the case. But on the other hand, many of the events were witnessed by multiple observers, including professionals under controlled conditions, making the explanation of complete fraud almost impossible. The complexity of the case lies precisely in this duality, where truth is mixed with uncertainty. The question that remains is how to explain the moments when not. Was there a way for children to manipulate objects or produce sounds? How to justify the levitation of Janet, witnessed by neighbors and confirmed by photographs? Enfield's house has become a stage for the unexplainable, a place where the boundary between the real and the supernatural is blurred. This case, with its multiple layers of evidence and skepticism, serves as a powerful reminder of that not everything that happens can be easily dismissed as illusion or deception, and that some phenomena defy the most rational explanations, leaving a legacy of unanswered questions. The escalation of events at Enfield has been frightening and relentless, going far beyond mere banging on walls. The Hodgson family experienced a series of phenomena that challenged physics. Objects, heavy, such as dressers and tables, moved on their own. Chairs were thrown through the air, and toys seemed to gain life of their own. Janet's bed was often shaken violently, and she and her sister Margaret were sometimes thrown out of their beds by an invisible force. Imagine the dread of waking up in the middle of the night to find your room in complete chaos, without a logical explanation in sight. Fear has become a constant companion. One of the most disturbing and difficult to refute aspects was the manifestation of the guttural voice. This voice, which seemed to emanate from Janet's throat, though she did not move her lips, claimed to be that of Bill Wilkins, a man who had died in the house decades earlier in an armchair downstairs. The voice was hoarse, rough, and carried details about Wilkins' life that Janet supposedly had no way of knowing. This vocal phenomenon was recorded in audio by researchers, and the quality and nature of the voice were so abnormal that many considered it one of the most convincing evidences of the presence of something supernatural. Researchers, including Grosse and Playfair, documented more than 1,500 incidents in a period of 18 months. They witnessed objects flying, doors opening and closing by themselves, and even spontaneous fires of small proportions that were quickly contained. The quantity and variety of phenomena were so vast that they challenged any attempt at simple explanation or large-scale fraud. The pressure on the family was immense, and stress of living under constant invisible threat has taken a heavy toll on your mental and physical health, turning your home into a prison of terror. However, the allegations of fraud, although minor in the face of a flood of unexplained events, persisted. Some critics pointed out that the children, especially Janet, had a history of mischief, and that media attention could have encouraged misleading behavior. However, the moments when children were observed closely and incidents continued to occur without any possibility of manipulation were too numerous to be ignored. The presence of photographers and journalists who also witnessed unexplained events added another layer of complexity, making it difficult. The total dismissal of the case as a sham. The Enfield case is an enigma that continues to intrigue researchers and paranormal enthusiasts. The combination of direct testimonies, audio recordings, and photographs, together with the persistence of phenomena that challenged logic, solidifies its position as one of the most important records of poltergeist. he forces us to ask, if was not a fraud, what was it? And if it was a fraud, how to explain the moments when the farce was impossible? The truth hidden behind these walls continues to whisper, challenging our understanding and reminding us that the world is far more mysterious than we seem willing to admit. Despite the wealth of evidence and testimonies in cases like Enfield, science, conventional and many skeptics struggle to accept the supernatural explanations. The search for a rational understanding led many to explore alternative theories, such as that of recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, RSPK, where unconscious psychic energy, usually from a teenager in puberty, would be the cause of the phenomena. This theory suggests that emotional tension and stress accumulated in an individual could manifest themselves physically in the environment, moving objects or creating noise, without the individual being aware of their own capacity. This explanation, although it seems more scientific, is still far from fully accepted and lacks robust empirical evidence. How an unconscious psychic energy could throw a heavy chest of drawers or produce a guttural voice with details about a deceased. RSPK advocates argue that the energy released in moments of great emotional stress may have measurable physical effects, but the extent and nature of these effects in poltergeist cases are still a vast, unexplored territory. The difficulty lies in isolating and measuring this energy, making the theory more the intriguing hypothesis of what a proven truth. For families who faced the terror of a poltergeist, the theoretical explanation does not matter in the face of the reality of flying objects and threatening voices. Pain, fear, and trauma are very real, and the search for answers becomes a vital need. The inability to categorize these events within paradigms established scientists only deepens the mystery, leaving the victims in a limbo of misunderstanding and despair, where aid is scarce and credibility often questioned. This brings us to the case of Rosenborg in Sweden in 1941, one of the most documented and inexplicable events in Nordic history. A family of farmers began to experience a series of events, quirks that quickly escalated, drawing the attention of the entire region and government investigators. This case, by its nature and the extent of its manifestations, challenges the theory of individual psychokinesis and forces us to consider other possibilities. What could be behind a disturbance that affected not only a house, but that seemed to have more ramifications? Wide, the hidden truth in Rosenborg may give us clues about the true nature of poltergeists, showing that they can be much more than a mere manifestation of psychic energy. The case of Rosenborg in Sweden in 1941 offers an even more chilling perspective on poltergeist phenomena. Unlike Enfield, where the focus seemed to be on a teenager, Rosenborg involved a family of farmers, the Anderson, and a series of events that spanned several months with an intensity that defied comprehension. It all started with small disturbances such as strange bangs and objects moving alone, but soon escalated to more violent manifestations, including stones being thrown from inside the house and furniture being turned. No apparent explanation. The farmhouse, isolated and old, seemed to have become an epicenter of chaos. The Anderson family, consisting of parents and 3 children, was terrified. The demonstrations happened at any time of day or night, leaving them exhausted and with constant fear. They reported seeing objects floating in the air before being thrown against the walls, and hearing whispering voices that seemed to come from all directions. The most shocking was when, on some occasions, family members themselves were physically assaulted by an invisible force, suffering scratches and pushes. Imagine the despair of living in a place where you are not safe even inside your own home, where the threat is invisible and relentless. Whispering voices that seemed to come from all directions. The most shocking was when, on some occasions, family members themselves were physically assaulted by an invisible force, suffering scratches and pushes. Imagine the despair of living in a place where you are not safe even inside your own home, where the threat is invisible and relentless. One of the investigators reported seeing a kitchen knife levitating and then falling hard on the ground, with no one around to handle it. These professional testimonies added an irrefutable weight to the family's accounts. The psychology professor, Dr. Jacobson, spent weeks on the farm, interviewing the family and documenting the events. He tried to find rational explanations, investigating the possibility of fraud, psychological imbalance, or even underground gases. But all their theories were overturned by the persistence and nature of the phenomena. He was forced to conclude that something beyond human comprehension was operating in the house. Rosenborg's true revelation lies in his ability to challenge the most common explanations for poltergeists. There was no adolescent clearly identified as the focus of psychic energy, and the events were so broad and varied that the idea of a fraud orchestrated by the whole family seemed untenable. What was really happening on that isolated farm? The truth hidden in these events forces us to question the very structure of the real age, and to consider that there may be forces at play that science does not yet have the tools to even begin to understand, leaving us with a sense of vulnerability and wonder. The intensity of events in Rosenborg reached its climax, with manifestations bordering on the unbelievable. They weren't just flying objects. The Anderson reported that the beds were violently shaken in the middle of the night, and the doors and windows opened and closed with force, even though they were locked. On a particularly terrifying occasion, the kitchen stove lit itself, and pots full of boiling water floated dangerously through the kitchen. The fear of a fire was constant, adding an extra layer of panic to an already unbearable. The family lived under imminent threat of physical harm and destruction. The most disturbing, perhaps, was how the poltergeist seemed to interact directly with family members. Reports of hair-pulling, pinching, and even pushing were common. The youngest son, only 7 years old, was found on several occasions crying inconsolably, claiming that an invisible thing had assaulted him. The absence of visible marks made the situation even more frustrating and frightening, because there was no way to prove the attack, only the pain and terror of the child. The psychological trauma inflicted on the family was immense, leading them to a state of exhaustion and despair. The researchers who stayed on the farm also experienced and firsthand, which solidified the credibility of family accounts. One of the police officers, during a night vigil, witnessed a bucket full of water being suddenly turned over, soaking the ground without any human intervention. On another occasion, a glass of milk floated from the table and fell to the ground, breaking into pieces. These incidents, occurring under the attentive observation of trained professionals, made it almost impossible to rule out the case as fraud or collective hysteria. The persistence of the phenomenon led the Anderson family to a drastic decision. After months of uninterrupted torment and with no prospect of events ceasing, they were forced to abandon their home and the farm they had owned for generations. The loss of his home and sustenance was a devastating blow, but the need to escape the unseen terror was greater than any material attachment. The house was empty for many years, with a reputation of being haunted, a dark reminder of the unknown force that had inhabited it. The Rosenborg case is a shocking testimony to the destructive capacity of a poltergeist. Consistent in cases like Enfield and Rosenborg, science does not yet have a definitive explanation for the poltergeist phenomena. This gap in human knowledge is precisely what makes these mysteries so captivating and at the same time so terrifying. The lack of a unified and scientifically proven theory leaves us in a state of uncertainty, forcing to confront the possibility that our understanding of the universe is actually very limited. The rhetorical questions accumulate. What, in fact, moves these objects? Who or what is behind the voices and aggressions? It is a disembodied entity, the manifestation of a type of psychic energy not yet identified, or something completely different besides our wildest imagination. The hidden truth in each of these cases seems to point to a much more complex and interconnected reality than we are able to conceive. The inability to replicate these phenomena in the laboratory or predict them consistently is the biggest obstacle for science, keeping these secrets well guarded. Many researchers, paranormals, believe that poltergeists are a form of residual energy, perhaps linked to traumatic events or intense emotions, which manifests itself in a chaotic way. Others suggest that they are intelligent entities, trapped between the worlds, seeking to interact or attract attention. The absence of a consensus only deepens the mystery, but also keeps alive the hope that one day, with new technologies or a new understanding of physics, we can finally solve these puzzles. What is undeniable is the devastating impact these events have on the lives of people who experience them. The constant fear, the feeling of invasion, the doubt of your own sanity, and the social stigma of being a haunted house are deep scars. The documented real cases serve as a grim reminder that there is more between heaven and earth than our philosophy can dream of. It is crucial to recognize that even without a complete explanation, the occurrence of these phenomena cannot simply be ruled out. The quantity and consistency of reports, the involvement of independent witnesses and evidence. One day, with new technologies or a new understanding of physics, we can finally solve these puzzles. What is undeniable is the devastating impact these events have on the lives of people who experience them. The constant fear, the feeling of invasion, the doubt of your own sanity, and the social stigma of being a haunted house are deep scars. The documented real cases serve as a grim reminder that there is more between heaven and earth than our philosophy can dream of. It is crucial to recognize that even without a complete explanation, the occurrence of these phenomena cannot simply be ruled out. The quantity and consistency of reports, the involvement of independent witnesses and evidence documented require continuous research and an open mind. True revelation is not a simple answer, but the understanding that the universe holds secrets that challenge our logic and invite us to expand the limits of our knowledge. The mysteries of poltergeists in old houses, such as those of Enfield and Rosenheim, persist not for lack of research but by extraordinary and evasive nature of phenomena. They force us to confront the fragility of our understanding of the world and recognize that there are forces and interactions that transcend the materialistic logic we cherish. Every object that flies, every unexplainable beat, every whisper in the dark is a reminder that we still have much to discover. These documented cases are only tales of terror. They are windows to the unknown, challenging science and reason. They leave us with a sense of wonder and, paradoxically, vulnerability. The absence of an easy resolution is, in a way, the resolution itself. The acceptance that some mysteries may never be fully solved, but that the search for answers is intrinsic. The undeniable impact of these phenomena. We invite you to reflect on what you saw and heard, to question your own beliefs, and to consider that the world may hold secrets that challenge all logic. The emotional climax lies in uncertainty itself, in understanding that the control we think we have over reality is an illusion. Embrace the mystery, for it is in him that lies the true magic and terror of the unexplainable.